It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're sitting at a kitchen table in a rented apartment. The rent went up again, $200 more a month starting February. Your landlord didn't call. He sent an email. You open Zillow anyway. You've opened it 200 times this year. You know what you'll find. You find it again. The median home in your city costs $487,000. Your savings account has $24,000 in it. You've been putting money away for 3 years. You didn't go on vacation. You drive a 2014 Civic. You bring lunch to work. It doesn't matter. You close the tab. You open it again. They told you how this works. Go to school, get a job, save up, buy a home, build equity. That's the American ladder. The wealth ladder. The way every generation before you did it. So you did all of it. You have a stable job. You've got a good credit score, 740. You've been pre-qualified. You've read the articles. You know the difference between a fixed rate and an ARM. You've watched the YouTube videos about down payments and closing costs. You are doing everything right. You are still falling behind. Because what they didn't tell you is that the ladder has been pulled up. And it wasn't an accident. It was a policy decision made 40 years ago, and the people who made it have been compounding on it ever since. Here's what actually happened. In the early 1980s, the U.S. began shifting its tax code to favor asset ownership over labor income. The mortgage interest deduction was expanded. Capital gains treatment on home sales was made extraordinarily generous. Local zoning laws, which had always been restrictive, became aggressively weaponized to limit supply. The people who already owned didn't need to build more housing. More housing would dilute their asset, so they voted against it. City council after city council, suburb after suburb. The language was always about neighborhood character, about density, about traffic. But the math was simpler. Every new unit of housing built near me dilutes my investment, so they built less. In 1970, the U.S. issued 17 million housing permits. In 2022, with a population 60 million larger, that number was still just 55 million. Supply was deliberately choked. Then 2008 happened. The crash wiped out 8 million homeowners. Those empty homes got cheap, but you didn't have the capital to buy them. You were in college, or just starting out, or recovering from your own recession-era wounds. Who had the capital? Institutional investors, private equity firms, Blackstone, Invitation Homes, American Residential Properties. They bought single-family homes in bulk, by the thousands, by the tens of thousands, homes that used to be starter homes. Homes that were supposed to be the first rung of the ladder. They didn't buy them to live in them. They bought them to rent out, and then to sell, at the new, higher price, later. The asset class you were told to aspire to had been absorbed by a financial instrument. Now understand what a house actually is inside the current system. A house is not shelter, not primarily. A house is a leveraged financial asset that produces tax advantages, appreciates against inflation, and constitutes approximately 70% of the average American household's net worth. You are not shut out of housing. You are shut out of generational wealth transfer. Think about what ownership means in practice. When a homeowner's property appreciates, they gain equity, tax-free, on paper, compounding. They can borrow against it. They can pass it to their children, stepped up in basis, largely sheltered from estate taxes. They can sell it after 2 years and pocket $500,000 in gains completely tax-free if they're married. Meanwhile, your rent payment disappears every month. It builds nothing. Your landlord, or the private equity fund that owns your landlord, books your rent as income and your property as an appreciating asset simultaneously. You are paying for their wealth in monthly installments, and the more you pay in rent, the harder it is to save the down payment that would let you stop paying rent. It's not a cycle. It's a trap with a one-way valve. The Federal Reserve's response to COVID made this geometrically worse. In 2020 and 2021, rates dropped to near zero. Existing homeowners refinanced. They extracted cash from equity at virtually no cost. Investors borrowed cheaply and bought more inventory. Then the Fed raised rates. fast, sharply. The people who got in cheap are now locked in cheap. The people who didn't are now facing 7% mortgages on assets priced as if rates were still 3%. You're not buying in a high-rate environment. You're buying in a high-rate environment on top of pandemic-era pricing. Both conditions stacked against you. Watch what happens over the next 10 years if nothing changes. The homeowners who bought in 2018 have $300,000 in untouched equity. They move, they cash out. They buy the next house with a 40% down payment, which means a smaller loan, which means the rate barely touches them. Their kids inherit the asset basis. The renters who couldn't buy in 2018 are now competing for the same diminished rental inventory. Rates are higher. Prices haven't come down. Owners don't sell at a loss. They just don't sell, constricting supply further. The gap doesn't close, it compounds. By 2035, economists project the U.S. home ownership rate, already at its lowest since 1965, will fall further. The bifurcation accelerates. On one side, a propertied class with intergenerational wealth, tax advantages, and financial leverage. On the other side, a permanent renter class whose monthly payment produces no equity, no tax benefit, and no inheritance. This isn't a housing crisis, it's a class crystallization mechanism wearing the clothes of a market failure. So what do you do with this information? Here's the brutal part. Even if you understand the system still applies to you. The math hasn't changed because you've read it. You're still in the apartment. The rent is still going up. The email is still in your inbox. There is no clean exit from this. If you stay renting, you continue paying for someone else's equity. If you buy now, you may be catching the top of an overpriced, over-leveraged market with a historically punishing rate. If you move to a cheaper city, you often trade your job market for your housing costs. The premium you were earning was a cost of living premium, and it follows you. The only people who reliably win are the people who were already inside when the gates closed. You can make smart decisions at the margin. Buy in a supply-friendly city, house hack, put down less, and keep the liquidity. Invest the difference if you stay renting. These are real moves. They matter. But don't confuse optimization with escape. You are not escaping the system. You are navigating within it. The homeowners who told you it was simple bought in a different market, in a different tax environment, in a different rate climate, with different institutional competition. When they say you're not trying hard enough, they are telling you about a game that ended before you sat down. The house at 11:47 p.m. on Zillow isn't a failure of your discipline. It's a ledger entry in someone else's balance sheet. And somewhere across the city, someone is looking at the same listing you just closed. Not to live in it, to buy the whole street.